Was good, ballers? This is Jim's Ballin' back again with another video, and we're going to be recapping the 4 playoff games of the divisional round. A little bit of a thoughts and reaction to it. A little bit of a different video, but just because we're so deep into the season, kind of hard to do power rankings, usual weekly videos, so I think this would be a good video. Talk about the last few games, you know? Not too many games left, not too many teams, so we can talk about them all. And the first game of this divisional round weekend was the Texans at the Chiefs. And I predicted the Chiefs to win this one because, of course, they're always going to fucking win these games. And the Chiefs won this in the most Chiefs way. They just didn't really have to do too much, but still won the game. I mean, when you look at the stats, the Texans had more yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards, more yards per play, had more first downs. I mean, just looking at the stats, the Texans kind of dominated the stats. There's a few reasons why the Chiefs were able to win. Look at the penalties here. The Texans had a lot more penalties than the Chiefs. You talk about the refs being on the Chiefs side. I mean, that was a little bit of the case here, but I feel like another big thing was the sacks. The Chiefs defense is elite. They have a really good defense, and they were able to get at CJ Stroud, sack him a bunch, shut him down. And I think that was the big thing because, yes, while maybe some of the penalties were helping the Chiefs, I still think in the end that this Chiefs defense was shutting down CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. They were shutting down whatever the Texans had. So I think even if some of these penalties didn't go the Chiefs' favor, I still think the Chiefs would have won because of that insane defense that the Chiefs have. The other big stat here, looking at the Texans, it had to be the kicker. Fairbairn missing 2 field goals. That was really tough. Make those 2 field goals, we're looking at a 23-20 score, and that is a bit of a difference there. Always felt like Fairbairn wasn't really the best kicker, and he kind of cost the Texans a little bit this game as well. But yeah, a really good game from Nico Collins. Good game from Joe Mixon. He ran the ball pretty well. But with CJ Stroud, he was just under siege the whole game, threw no touchdowns, so that's really tough. For the Chiefs, Mahomes didn't have to do too much, but the big thing was Kelce. The Texans let Kelce have a big game, and Kelce, with his big game, really kind of secured the win for the Chiefs here. And as well as kicking. Harrison Butker, he's back, made all 3 of his field goals, while Texans kicker Fairbairn went 2 for 4. But yeah, you know this Chiefs team. The Chiefs, you know how they win all these playoff games. They're at home. They were going to win this game regardless. No matter how it shook out, the Chiefs were going to win this one. And for the Texans, they played pretty decently. You can hang your hat on that. The Texans are still a pretty decent team. A lot of people, including me, kind of expected them to go one and done. So the fact that they were able to dominate their first round and then kind of compete with the Chiefs' second round, overall, that's pretty decent. It's a decent season for the Texans, but it's also kind of disappointing because we kind of felt like this Texans team kind of went all in. We kind of felt like they'd be able to be super competitive, hang with the top of the top teams in the AFC with the Chiefs and the Bills, but it really showed that they weren't really there yet. We'll see what the Texans do next season. As for the Chiefs, it's looking like a three-peat's inevitable. They got another home game next week. Got Patrick Mahomes, he's still Patrick Mahomes. That elite defense. That defense just really limits the opposing team to not score that many points. And then Patrick Mahomes just has to do just enough to win games. And then the Chiefs, they just keep winning. So it's hard to pick against them. Have a really solid kicker as well. And they got the refs on their side too, so a Chiefs Super Bowl win is looking kind of inevitable. Next up, we got the Commanders at the Lions. I talked about this game a little bit already. And for this Detroit Lions at the Commanders game, I did predict that the Lions would win this one because, of course, why wouldn't they? Rookie quarterback on the road, Detroit Lions, number 1 seed at home. I think everyone kind of expected the Lions to win, but this was just a massive upset. The big thing, it was the turnovers. That's what lost the game for the Lions. 5 turnovers by the Lions, 0 for the Commanders. That'll lose you the game, just automatically right there. Turnover battle is secretly underrated because it shifts momentum and then gives offenses more possession. So turnovers are massive in the Lions, turn over the ball a lot. So yeah, that's what lost them the game. As for officiating, it seemed a little bit fair. There was a phantom face mask went on the Commanders, but there was also an unnecessary roughness that wasn't called against Goff. So bad calls kind of went both way, kind of even. So we know that this Lions defense super banged up. No Aiden Hutchinson. If he was in there, would he have made a difference? Definitely. Amik Robertson went out on the second play as well. And he was the hero of week 18. And to not have your hero for your last game played, not be able to play, I think that made a bit of a difference as well. But yeah, the Lions just kind of beat themselves. They just turned over the ball a lot. I mean, look at the 4th down in the red zone when the Lions were only down by 3. You get a stop there. They had too many men on the field and then just gave the Commanders a free first down, free first and goal, and they scored another touchdown. I mean, look at that. That's what really secured the loss. Just the too many men on the field giving them a free first down. You can't let that happen, especially after you turn over the ball a lot. The Lions just completely beat themselves. And credit to Jane Daniels. I mean, he had an incredible game as well. The Lions defense just couldn't stop them. It was really just a good matchup for the Commanders because the Lions, they just haven't played a scheme or a quarterback like Jane Daniels too many times this season, maybe not even at all. So the Commanders had a good matchup, played a good game, and then the Lions just couldn't stop whatever the Commanders were doing on offense. However, I think the next matchup for the Commanders, it's not going to be a good one against the Eagles. When you talk about the Lions being unprepared for Jane Daniels, the Eagles are going to be because they've already played Jane Daniels twice this season. This will be the 3rd matchup. They're familiar with Jane Daniels. They're familiar with their game. So I think they'll have a harder time just having this offensive dominance against the Eagles. As well as you look at Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs had a massive game. Jahmyr Gibbs, 14 carries for 105 yards, 7.5 yards a carry. And you're going up against Saquon next week, the best running back in the league. I feel like Saquon will probably have a massive game against the Commanders. So we'll see how it goes for the Commanders. Probably not as good of a matchup as it was against the Lions, but we'll see. Next up, we had the Rams at the Eagles. And I predict that the Eagles would win this one because the Eagles were at home and because of cold, sloppy weather. I mean, that's kind of what I expected, and that's kind of what it was. The Rams are a great team, and I think if the Rams played this game at home, they probably would have won this one. But just because of the cold weather, this Los Angeles team going to a cold Philly, was a snow game with sloppy weather, I think the Eagles definitely benefited from that bad weather. And I think the biggest stat of this game was the rushing yards. I mean, 285 rushing yards for the Eagles. That was big. Stafford threw the ball pretty well, even in the cold. Credit to him. Kyron Williams had a good game running as well. Saquon Barkley, 26 carries for 205 yards, 7.9 yards a carry. That is ridiculous. When a team is just running the ball down your throat like that, it's impossible to win games. And the other big thing was the turnovers. Talk about that game after game after game. The turnovers are a big thing. Like I mentioned, the cold, sloppy weather, no turnovers by the Eagles, 2 fumbles lost by the Rams, and that's what also helped win the game for the Eagles. It's cold weather, sloppy weather, snow game. It definitely benefited the Eagles, and that's what helped them get the win here. Credit to the Rams, though. They're a really great team. Kind of seemed like maybe midway through the season with all the injuries, they might trade away some players, but this Rams team is insane. Jared Verse and that defense is insanely good, and Stafford's still solid with Puka and Kupp, and Kyron Williams is an underrated running back. Rams are a really good team and could be dangerous next year as well. The Eagles are a good team. They got home field advantage, so that's why they keep winning these games. Home field advantage is extremely important. In the last game of this playoff weekend, it was the Ravens at the Bills, and I predicted that the Ravens would win this game, but the Bills ended up on top. I should have not doubted Josh Allen at home because the Bills did end up with the win. And like I mentioned, game after game after game again, the big thing was the turnovers. 2 fumbles lost and an interception by the Ravens, no turnovers by the Bills. The turnovers is what killed the Ravens and what won the game for the Bills. You also look at the penalties. There were a lot more penalties on the Ravens rather than the Bills as well. That definitely hurt the Ravens. And I think another thing that the Ravens should have done is they should have ran the ball a lot more. I mean, they ran the ball a good amount. But with Derrick Henry in a playoff game, I mean, their most commanding drive was when they ran the ball down the Bills' throat. I don't know why they just didn't keep running the ball time after time again throughout this whole game. Lamar Jackson threw the ball a good amount, but in this cold weather game out in the snow, I mean, why not just rely on Derrick Henry, just run the ball just down their throats? Only 16 carries. I feel like he should have had 20 plus, honestly. And this was a pretty even matchup, but like I said, I think the big thing was the turnovers by the Ravens. And as well as that 2-point completion drop by Mark Andrews. He catches that, it goes to overtime. Who knows what could happen? I mean, when you look at the stats, the Ravens had more total yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards, more yards per play. The Ravens offense was really good this game. And if you catch that 2-point conversion, goes into overtime, it seems like the Ravens kind of had the momentum and were maybe the better team today, but the turnovers killed them, like I said. But all in all, this was a good win by the Bills. And let's see what will happen. Can the Bills finally beat the Chiefs in the playoffs? I think most likely not, but we'll see. But that'll wrap up this divisional weekend for the playoffs. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Jim's Ballin', and I'll see you next time. Peace.